My name is Lucy Mays and I'm a pigment maker and artist, and I make colours made from natural materials and waste stream materials procured from my local environment. I learnt my craft from doing a fine art degree at Oxford and at the Royal College of Art, but it was really going into nature and going out of the studio and experiencing woodlands and plants and environments that really led me to start to experiment with colour. I'm interested in historical inks, especially from the medieval period and the Roman period here in Britain, and many of those materials come from woodlands, and so I'm looking specifically at oak trees, ash trees and various different kinds of detritus that you'll find or debris on the forest floor. There are many kinds of animals or organisms that create oak galls, and they could be insects, fungi, nematodes, to name a few. And so depending on what species and what organism is interacting with the plant, you get an amazing array of different growths that form on the bark, where the growing bud may be, or leaf. Our communication with each other, human to human, is so incredibly quick, and yet these organisms are communicating on much longer time spans, and I find that really fascinating. Once you collect your galls, you then crush them. After you've reduced the size and you crush them, then it's time to add water and simmer the material in order to break down the cell walls of the structures to really get at those tannins that are going to come out. Heat is a really good way to break down the cell walls and get at the tannins and produce a solution where the tannins as a dye are suspended. Once you've heated the broken knopper galls in the water, the solution will become very rich brown. That decoction is then filtered, so we want to get rid of any of the little bits of either wood, twig or broken knopper. That solution or decoction is then reacted with a form of rust and reacted with water and oxygen to create iron oxide and various other iron compounds to then form this beautiful black pigment. Once you add the iron sulfate or the rust to the tannin decoction, you'll see very quickly a black physical, insoluble precipitate appear on the paper. This is actually a pigment, and it needs especially a lot of oxygen for it to form and become blacker and blacker over time. To adhere the particles of pigment to the paper, you need a glue or an adhesive, and traditionally for oak gall ink we use a soluble tree sap. The patterns that are produced are almost like looking at a kind of a microcosm or a kind of separate world that appears through time and reveals itself. There is something quite magical about taking these kind of quite banal materials that we overlook in the everyday and transforming them and allowing them to really kind of reveal different aspects of their chemistry. One of the things I often think about when I'm experimenting with ink is the idea that I'm working with a material that has its own life force and working with in tandem with nature and working almost as a collaboration with nature. And by doing that, it brings about a greater respect for living organisms that aren't humans. You, in the end, create an intimate relationship with nature, and it's funny because we often talk about nature as being like separate from us, and that we go into nature and we go and observe it, but really it's very much a part of us. And so I think it helps, this kind of practice helps to break down those boundaries that I think are quite artificial. I hope that through my work I reveal hidden narratives that are often going on between different species, and also looking at the material in a different way that hopefully can inspire other people to do the same, or to reorientate their connection or relationship to both colour and the natural world.